Somebody from Hollywood has contacted me today. I went off on a bit of a tangent for about 3 years doing all sorts of really cool films like Transformers and James Bond and stuff like that.
Dark Knight as well.
The smart thing here is not interacting with this as if it's a Google search engine, which is what 98% of people still do today. It's getting it to do stuff.
And a company rung us up and they asked, could four of our operatives wear basically a half a bodysuit?
There is a few things. So I've got a multi-7-figure arboricultural and ecological consultancy.
What's one question you'd like someone to ask you? Today's guest built a national consultation business from the Scottish Highlands and flew drones over Hollywood, and along the way he also got into AI and now helps other business owners develop AI and their systems within. So Matt, welcome along to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on. I'm already impressed that you've done a bit of research. I am a complicated person to find out any information on.
I do. I've had that actually a few times said to me about that, but I do spend a bit of time in researching the guests because I always like to dig deep into how they've become who they are today and the whole journey and what got them started in the first place, so it's great to do that sort of research and get it right and not look an idiot on camera.
Absolutely.
So let's dive straight in. So AI is moving incredibly fast. I think there was a video of Elon Musk recently and he said the future pretty much is AI and robots.
I think he's probably right. That is definitely the direction of travel. I think it's going to take a lot longer to get there than perhaps people think. There's always a lot of hype, isn't there? When a new technology comes on, people look and see how disruptive it's going to be. And I think the reality is we're a good probably 20 years away from people having robots folding their laundry up in their living room. But it'll be a fantastic day when it comes, won't it? Because we can just all swan around, please ourselves, go swimming, go on holiday, go to the gym. I mean, how we're going to earn money, I don't know. That's another question for another day. But I know you yourself run sort of a traditional trades business. And I think there's a lot of talk at the moment about how AI isn't going to disrupt those traditional businesses. But I think it will. Maybe not in terms of robots, but the big one is going to be how they actually find customers in the first place. That's the direction it's going, yeah.
Definitely, and I do believe that certainly tech first, I think, will probably be the priority or order of things. And then as it goes on, these robots develop, mannerisms and, they can move like us. There was one thing that we had the other day, and a company rung us up and they asked, could four of our operatives wear basically a half a bodysuit, not a full bodysuit, like from chest upwards, and it was like cameras, and it was like on their helmet too, and it was to wear them for 6 hours a day, and each week they would pay us per day, if we gathered the information that was actually useful, and they would give us a criteria of what they would say was useful. So before we sent it over to them, we could check just for fairness and clarity. But basically what we were saying is, okay, so they're figuring out how we do it all.
Yeah.
And then upload it to these, whatever they upload it to for the robots, to understand actually how to move and how to do it.
They're doing that in China, aren't they?
Really?
Yeah, and it's a lot more advanced already, and I guess they're trying to bring that into Western industries now, but they're doing that in clothes factories. They're building robots that can do the traditional sewing tasks, and the staff in there, they're wearing goggles and they're wearing cameras and they're basically training the model. I mean, people think AI is new. AI has been around for a very, very long time, probably 25 to 30 years, which in tech terms is a long time. And where AI started was within Google and Google engineers building tools to make their lives easier. So one of the things, I'm sure you've done it and I'm sure you've been frustrated by it, but when you try and sign into something on Google and it's like click all the buttons with traffic lights on, well, what do you think we're doing? We're training their models. That's what we're doing. We're training their models. So this is not new, but it's moving into a human-centric world now. So it's interesting. Yeah.
Very.
I can't see brickies wearing cameras though.
No.
I mean, window cleaning, I guess at height.
Yeah.
I can kind of see that, but You know,
They didn't differentiate between the methods because there's 4 methods, 3 of them working at height, 1 of them's from the ground. They just said 4 operatives.
yeah.
So we're kind of having that discussion because one of my managers was like, absolutely no way. We don't want to be given the game away. I said, well, if we don't do it, somebody else will. I said, but we want to have our name attached to this. And that was the thing. We want to be able to
The smart
be seen.
move there is getting a tie-in, isn't it? And getting the
Yeah.
getting the IP.
Exactly.
It's like,
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Obviously, going to have to reassure the staff that you're not going to sack them all when the robots turn up. But yeah, when that van full of robots turns up and they all scamper up the outside of the building, it's got to be
Change of industry.
exciting times. Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely. I've got a bit of background in the drone space. I was heavily involved in drones coming to the UK and the formation of the regulatory environment and all that sort of stuff. And it was a bit like AI. Everybody was getting super excited about it. And you used to say to people that a drone is just a tool, another tool in the toolbox. And it's going to be the same with robots at the end of the day. You know, the window cleaning guys, they'll go out with a van and not every job's going to be perfect. But for those that it is, there'll be a robot there ready to go.
Yeah.
You'll know they're already doing window cleaning and stuff like that with tethered drones abroad.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't want that to fall on my head.
No, they're quite large as well, aren't they?
Yeah, they're big.
Quite big.
Yeah, they're big.
So you've touched on what you used to do. So let's go into that then. So for everybody listening right now, what is it you actually do?
That's good. said with venom. Yeah. What do you actually do?
There was a few things.
There is a few things. So I've got a multi-7-figure arboricultural and ecological consultancy,
Which is
Rover Group. So this is a nationwide tree and ecology consultancy. And the sort of buzzword at the top of the website there is we help people get their planning applications back on track. Okay. So we provide the bat surveys, the tree surveys, the environmental surveys, everything to do with protecting the natural environment. When the built environment comes knocking and says, you know, we want to put up a new tower block or a whole load of houses, we make sure that all the boxes are ticked when it comes to the little birds and beasties. So that's a nationwide business. It's headquartered in Inverness in the Scottish Highlands. That's just because that's where I live. I moved up there. You'll note I'm not Scottish. I'm from this area, Guildford in Surrey originally. Moved up there about 15 years ago. And as that business grew and scaled, I took on more and more consultants. And now I've got directly employed staff, home-based consultants scattered all over the UK. We occasionally bring on a few subcontractors and a few freelancers this time of year when it gets stupid busy. But mostly they're directly employed. So yeah, that's what we do in that business.
Just a quick one. If you're running a window cleaning or a cleaning business right now, and you've hit a point where you're not sure what the next move is, in my experience, that's usually not a strategy problem. It's a clarity problem. I've been building a commercial window cleaning business for nearly 20 years now, and I've had the good years and I've had the bad. At the time of this recording, we're on course for £4 million this year, and we currently have 41 members of the team. So I know what it takes to build a business that can give you the lifestyle you want and the free time you deserve. If you want some guidance or just want someone to help you see your own business a bit more clearly, head over to bradstaines.com, or if you want, email me directly at brad@bradstaines.com. We can just have a conversation and see if I can help. Now back to the podcast. And the name Rover.
Oh, God.
So it's spelled ROAVR.
Yeah, ROAVR. I know. The story behind that is that I was a tree surgeon by trade. So I had a tree surgery business down in Guildford and in Surrey when I was in my early 20s to probably my late 20s, early 30s. And I didn't know my arse from my frigging elbow. I made all the bad mistakes. I got offered opportunities. I took equipment on finance that I couldn't afford. I didn't know what I was doing when it came to hiring staff. I had no mentors. Back then, it was all about beating your chest. So you'd see other industry guys in Tesco's. How's it going? Yeah, it's great, mate. Yeah, flat out. Every tradesman says that, doesn't it? Oh yeah, flat out.
Double busy.
And the reality was, we were doing all right. That business probably got to about 600, 700k a year. So we were on the cusp of success. And it got to the point where I'd pretty much had enough of it. And I've told the story before. I did sell the business, but what I actually sold was the IP. I didn't sell the business as a going concern. That part of it was shut down. I pretty much sold the IP, so my CRM, my phone numbers, all that sort of stuff. I passed off to trusted subcontractors for not a lot of money, and I started up on my own as an arboricultural consultant, and I was going around doing freelancing all over the place. And when my middle son was born, he's 12 now, James. When he was born, I lived up in the Scottish Highlands, but all my clients were down here in central London. So I was getting on my motorbike, strapping all my gear on, riding from Inverness all the way down here, doing 500 quid tree surveys here, there and all over the place in the home counties. I'd get probably a couple of grand's worth of work in, and then I'd go back up to the Highlands and I'd sit at the end of my garden in my shed and I'd type up those reports for a week and then I'd replace. And I thought that I was, doing a sensible thing. Well, you can imagine how well that went down with my wife at the time, stuck at home with a young baby, and I'm disappearing off. And it was just stupid, Brad. I was riding through the night in wind, rain, snow, all sorts of things. I remember one particular day when I was coming back. There's a pass through the Highlands called the Pass of Dromocta, and it goes up to something like 1,500 feet above sea level. And I'm on the motorbike and I'm riding along. And it was in the early days of having a headset, so you could play a basic sort of music and a bit of radio through there. And it got stuck on some Dizzy Rascal song. So it's pouring with rain, and I've just got this Dizzy Rascal song going over and over and over my head. And I thought, I've got to do something different. This is just bloody ridiculous. And I've always had an interest in aviation. I've flown all sorts of different types of aircraft, from fast jets through the Scottish Highlands to I've got a couple of hours on a helicopter, but I would never say I could fly one, but I've had a go in one. Real interest in aviation. My father used to work at the Royal Aircraft Establishment in Farnborough, and he was involved with the design of Concorde and things like that.
Wow.
So it runs quite deep in my blood. But I didn't think I was ever smart enough to become a pilot in the Army Air Corps, which is what I wanted to do. My eyesight is crap. I wear contact lenses, so that was a barrier. It's not now. You could do it, but it was a barrier back then. And I'd just been made aware of these things called drones coming along, and there was a company out in China called DJI, and they'd produced what's known as a flight controller that could be plugged onto model helicopters, which would make it fly semi-autonomously. And I don't know if you've ever tried to fly a model helicopter, but it's a bit like rubbing your stomach and patting your head.
Okay.
They're almost impossible. It's a wealthy man's game. They buy these things and then they crash them and then they rebuild them. And I thought, this is a really good idea. What if we strapped a camera system to this and we could go and look at trees? And we could look at the canopies of trees. We could look for defects. We could do all sorts of clever stuff. So about 2011, 2012, I went off and did my drone course, which was much more intensive than it is today. You had to have a really good, strong base knowledge of aviation and all sorts of things around that. And I threw myself into that. And I thought, this is the way forwards. Spent probably about £5,000 or £6,000 on what would now be a very, very basic drone you could get from Argos for 200 quid. And I went back to all my clients and I knocked on the door and I said, look what I've done. I've got all this stuff and I can do this thing. And it was just tumbleweeds. We got absolutely nowhere with it. And to pull it back to your question, Rover, what Rover stands for is Remote Operated Aerial Vehicles. And we put the R on the end because we were rovering around.
Oh, okay.
And I'm stuck with it, and it's shit. And I've been stuck with it for 15 years, and it's probably not going anywhere now.
Yeah.
We've recently had a bit of a rebrand. It comes up every now and again. People ask me. And we'll get onto the AI stuff, but you try getting an AI agent to say Rover.
Yeah.
We've got an AI agent that answers our phones in that business, and it's taken like 6 months and umpteen amounts of training to get this thing to pronounce Rover correctly. But yeah, and we got no traction in the tree and ecology space, but where we did get people knocking on the door. And actually, somebody from Hollywood has contacted me today. I got an email as I was coming in here saying, can you do some drone film work in Scotland for us for a feature film? And I'm like, yeah. We don't really still do that. Hopefully this will come out after.
This will.
We don't really still do that, but that's what we were getting the knocks on the door for. So I went off on a bit of a tangent for about 3 years doing all sorts of really cool films like Transformers and James Bond and stuff like that. Which
Dark Knight as well,
really,
wasn't it?
yeah,
Dark
all
Knight,
of that.
was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was really, really good fun. Really good fun. Really enjoyed it, but we'll get back to business. Not scalable. Feast and famine. Single man or woman's game. The film industry is a bloody nightmare.
Yeah.
It's who you know. If you're available, you could get 6 months' work in Morocco on $3,000 a day, or you could be sat at home scratching your arse and getting absolutely nothing whatsoever. So yeah, it's a real challenge. But that's where the name Rover came from, and it's just evolved for a brief period of time. We had Rover UAS, which was unmanned aerial vehicles or something, I can't even remember now, and then we had Rover Environmental, but we pulled it all together about 3 years ago, and we really pushed go on the Tree and Eco consultancy. So
okay, so that explains the Rover then. So your AI, how did you get into the AI world then and building systems for businesses?
I'm a firm believer that one of the most valuable and important things that you can do as a business owner is educate yourself, whether that's reading, whether that's listening to podcasts. And I've done my research on you as well, and I know we mingle with the same sort of people, and you'll hear the same messaging over and over again. Read the stuff, listen to the stuff, take action. And the marriage that I was talking about earlier fell apart ultimately, eventually. It's all perfectly amicable, but that relationship fell apart, and part of that was me doing that. I'm man, I must provide, and I'm old enough now that retrospectively I can look back at that and go, 60% of that relationship failing was me. And off the back of that sort of failed marriage, I was like, well, I've got to take some responsibility for this. So I started searching around, and I found a guy, and I know now because I know a lot about that space, but it felt like his copy and his adverts were talking directly to me, and of course they were, because I was his ideal niche. That's exactly what he was looking for, and I'm still good friends with him today. It's really, really funny when you look back on this stuff. You're like, I can see what he's done here and how he's moved me from A to Z. And his big thing at the time was automation, and I threw myself into that. So I thought the way that I'm going to scale and grow Rover is through automation. So we built a whole load of funnels and pipelines to try and get drone business in. So we still to this day have a drone division. They do survey and inspection work. So we do offshore and onshore renewable energy inspection. So we look at oil rigs and wind turbines and all that stuff. Really, really good. Small part of the business, big meaty jobs when they come in, but the pipeline is slow. You can't really run paid advertising to it. And that's what we discovered through that process. We were like, this is weird. We're putting the messaging out there and we're getting absolutely nothing back. And the cost per conversion was so high, it was thousands of pounds to get somebody in. And my business at that point turned over maybe 180 grand a year. So it was only really me and one other. So it wasn't sustainable to spend that sort of money. And I just ran off down this automation path, trying to find out how I could systemize and process drive absolutely everything as much as I possibly can do. And then COVID happened. And when COVID happened, just as we were coming out of that, ChatGPT released their first model, what was it, 3.5 or something like that. And I was like, wow, this is just incredible. But what I did, and also with the help of that mentor, what I did is I looked at it and I went, the smart thing here is not interacting with this as if it's a Google search engine, which is what 98% of people still do today. It's getting it to do stuff. So what I started to do, and one of my philosophies and ethoses, and not everybody agrees with it, but this is my bedrock thing in AI consultancy, is that you should build an AI engine underneath the business. We had a bit of a chat, and you were talking about, Claude and your team using it and stuff like that. One of my things is that I don't want my staff interacting directly with AI. I want them interacting with, and we've got things called Rover Intel, Rover Core, Rover Jams. They all stand for things.
Yeah.
So we build our own tools. So what I started to do right back in whatever it was, 2022, something like that, was I started to build processes where systems went out and talked to AI and then came back with a response. Because if you remember in the early days of AI, if you went in there and you said, what I want you to do is read these site notes, and I want you to write a detailed quote, and I want you to do this, and I want you to format it like this, and I want you to turn it into a PDF, and I want you to email it to the client. You just couldn't do it. And people said, this AI is crap. And it's like, no, what you had to do is break it down into steps. And that's kind of still true today. So what we did was, or what I did, is I built all these processes where it would read and analyse my emails and respond draft initially. It would help my staff on site write reports. So they would have a simple form that they would collect the data, and then by the time they got back to the office, it's written the report draft for them, and then it just got to go for peer review and sign off. Lots and lots and lots of tools like that. I built quoting tools. So you were talking about something similar. I built something like that 3 or 4 years ago. And then what happened was other people in other business masterminds that I was part of and retreats that I've attended and stuff like that started moving towards me. And James Martin, who's a mutual friend of ours, calls me AI Matt. And it's because people gravitate towards me and start asking me these questions. And because they asked me these questions, and this started long before it was cool and it was a buzzword, I've had to constantly upskill myself, constantly look at what's the market doing, and then go completely the other way. So people at the moment are absolutely obsessed with using AI for content creation and video and all this sort of stuff. Completely the wrong use for it. You need to be looking at those boring bottlenecks within your business and then sprinkling the AI fairy dust over the top of that to really accelerate it and move it forward. So I grew my consultancy using AI and automation, and then other people have gravitated towards me, which means that now I've created my own sort of personal brand in that space. I get invited on podcasts, I go and speak at events. I've got clients all over the world that I go into their businesses, multi-million pound businesses that I go into and consult on basically and see how they can bring it in the right way.
Could I ask a huge favour, please? If you've got something out of this episode, could I ask that you share it with someone who needs to hear it? Maybe it's a mate or a business partner or someone in the trade who's really stuck in it right now, because that's generally how this podcast grows. One person sending it to another. And whilst you're there, if you're not already subscribed, could I ask that you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the next one? Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode. So I want to go into the audit, because you do an audit for businesses. Before we do that, do you have any regrets on how your passion or perhaps drive or maybe ignorance at the time sort of like led to your breakdown of your marriage?
I don't think I've got any regrets, because subsequently since then I've found the love of my life, Katrina. Watch this. And I'm knocking on the door of 50, and my daughter Emily she'll be 2 in November. She wouldn't have existed. All of the experiences, everything that's happened since this, I don't think you can have regrets. It's just part of the journey, isn't it?
It is.
Back then I was on chapter 2, now I'm on chapter 18, and I'm sure there's many more chapters to come. And I think that's really valuable for the listeners as well, is just to realise the fact that, comparison is the thief of joy. And the last thing you should be doing is looking at people that are further on than you and comparing yourself to them, because they're just further along with the journey. But no, there's no regrets there. I think education, if I'm a big believer that the education system is not fit for purpose, and that our
Yeah.
children are being taught totally the wrong things. I
Agree.
see what my middle son James, who's 12, I see when he comes home from school, I look at his homework and I'm like, just it's not setting them up right for the jobs of the future. And I just wish that there were business owners, entrepreneurs that were going into schools or engaging with the community back then. If I'd have had a better mentor, or I hadn't been so pig-headed as to believe that I had to compartmentalise and struggle and try and do everything myself, just, ask for help. If I'd have asked for help when I had my tree surgery company in my 20s, that probably would have gone to the moon. All of the growth, all of the bounds forwards, all of the big changes have come through being part of the business community, business masterminds, mentorship groups, and all that sort of stuff.
So perhaps you could say that changing your environment, being in those sort of rooms around those sort of people, lifts you.
It's
because
everything.
they've kind of been there, done it, and
It's everything.
Learning from those.
But the key thing, really, Brad, off the back of it, is to take action.
Yes, definitely.
That very first mentor, most of the businesses, and I'm still in his group, so I need to be very careful what I say. But most of the people that have come in and left from that particular group, and he really heavily vets people, and I think that's very important with these mastermind groups. If you find yourself being pulled towards business mentorship and business mastermind, and there's no sort of vetting or verification, or I'm not sure whether you're a good fit, let's have a conversation, that should be ringing alarm bells for you, because it means that when you get in there, are those people going to be the right kind of people to lift you up? You're the sum of the 6 people you spend the most time around. I can't never remember whether it's Tony Robbins or somebody else that says that, but and I think everybody that doesn't succeed when they surround themselves with the right people, it's because they don't take action, and I see that a lot.
Yeah, you certainly have to do a lot of reflection, don't you? You come away from those sort of days or weekends or camps, whatever it is you do, and then you think, okay, what am I going to do? But then sometimes or a lot of the time, you forget what you've just learned, and you forget the actions you should have taken, and then come Monday morning, you're back doing the same thing. You know what I mean? So it's breaking that habit, isn't it? I think that separates those from you really get success from it.
Yeah, I mean the most successful people I see are implementing straight after those masterminds. So I think I'm in Baddow Park Mastermind with James Martin. I was one of the first ones in the door there, and I remember at one of the very first meetings they said to me, "You really need to take this AI voice agent business thing you've set up seriously," which I have now. It's one of the product lines that we've got, and we can talk about that if it's relevant to your listeners. And one of the guys there, Mark Creaser, basically said to me, he said, "Well, you're going to need a developer because you can't keep doing this yourself." I'm like, right. And then that night, in I can't call it a hotel, sorry, James, because it's not a hotel, but in Baddow Park where we stay, that night I was on Indeed. I used Claude or ChatGPT or something to write a job description. I put it out there. We ran an interview process, and within a week, I'd employed a developer into that business. And I'm not saying that to boast, but that is the sort of level.
Yeah, quick action.
If somebody says you need to do this based on all of my experience, you're leveraging their experience. So you've got to take action on it, haven't you?
Definitely. And I actually put a post out a little while ago. I have sort of like a mastermind too, and the guy that runs that is like hundreds of millions of pounds a year in his business.
Yeah.
And then I go and see James Martin and a few of the other people from there, and what struck me was the speed of which they react or act on things. So if I send them the message, or I request something, or they ask me to do something, it's like, okay, the next morning, have that done. You're like, geez, that's about 40 hours worth of work. Do you know what I mean? Okay, fine, I better get on with it right now. So it's just so fast. It's just insane. Like, you send them a message, and it could be any time of the day or night, and unless it's like 1 a.m., but in a reasonable time, they've come back to you straight away.
Yeah,
they just do not hang around.
No.
They don't hang around.
No.
Even like posting, actually. I've been with James Martin and Will posting right on.
Yeah.
And they obviously regular on their posting. Both of them have acted immediately about a post. They said, "Oh yeah, I'm here today with a podcast, blah blah blah. Okay, with Brad, and here's a studio. Okay, post.
Yeah.
Done. Right, done. Right, what's next? You know, and I asked James, I said, why do you act so fast? Because it's out of my head. I don't have to think about it.
And also because at some point somebody has said to them, you need to build a personal brand. It doesn't need to be super highly polished. And in fact, there's an argument for that dropping off a cliff, and that's becoming less and less effective now. There's why are we in a podcast studio? We should just sat out on the street, shouldn't we, with our iPhones?
Yeah.
But there's an argument that, you know, you just got to take really, really fast action with it. And they've been told that by somebody else, or it's come across their radar. So they're just jumping on it and they're just doing it straight away. But I think also, it's easy for those of us that have got businesses of a certain size and we've sort of reversed ourselves out of operations and we've got all these tools and people. I think sometimes we forget what it's like to be in the weeds and knowing that you've got to do all this stuff, but actually you just haven't got the time to do it, you know?
Yeah, that's a fair point. That is a very fair point. There's a few people I've been speaking to recently and they're still in the vans. Like even when I've been having Zoom calls with them, they're taking it in the van and they want to get off the tools and get out of the van. So they know what they need to do. They need to work on the business more. But they're sitting there. One particular guy was in the call and his partner or his colleague came in and asked him for change because they were doing the houses. So I was like, he goes, oh, hold on, Brad, hold on one second. Shoving around, getting change. There you go. I was like, so there's that sort of thing. So it is tough. I know that is right, but you can still take action even at that stage. You know, you can still do it, and that's, you know.
I remember very clear. I think that survey inspection business has got, I don't know, 20, I don't actually even know how many staff we've got. It's somewhere between 25 and 30, I think. And probably another 5 or 6 like really regular subcontractors. And I remember being at that very first mastermind and going, I don't know whether I should employ this person. And some good friends of mine which run an asbestos consultancy, Neil and Ian, they said to me, you just got to do it. You just employ that person. It'll work itself out. Yeah. If you're thinking to yourself, I need somebody else, if you bring that person in, it's going to make a huge difference. And I think in some businesses, particularly trades businesses, those decisions are easier, aren't they? Because you can go, well, I've got X amount of work over there, and if I bring Bob, Brian, Sheila in, they can do that and I'll earn this. And I realise they're not going to be as good as me, but at least I can earn off them.
Yeah.
When you start talking about, you know, Barbara in accounts, and, you know, CFOs and PAs and VAs and EAs and all this receptionists, then it starts to get scary because it's not necessarily revenue generating roles.
Yeah, it's so good you say that. I use the exact same terminology. I'm like, right, they're revenue generating or not? Because it's two completely different mindsets. So that's what you have to understand.
Yeah.
So what sort of businesses would you say, would it be fair to say that you help service-based businesses like plumbers, electricians, all of that sort of thing?
So there's two strands. So if we talk about AI, Matt, there's a couple of things I do. One, once again, I've picked another model that you can't really run paid advertising to because people aren't problem aware. So in our survey and inspection business, people have got what we call a bleeding neck. So the local authority said you need a BAT survey before you can have your extension done, or we'll accept your planning application. They're like, oh, Google, or ChatGPT or whatever. So they've got a bleeding neck and they come towards us. The AI stuff, people don't know what they don't know at the moment. They might have very low level experience of using ChatGPT and Claude, etc., as a search engine, but they've got no idea of what it can actually do to help them advance their business forwards. So the way that I get the message out there at the moment is speaking from stages, got newsletters, my personal brand, social media, all that kind of good stuff. And it does pull people towards me. And essentially, when I go into businesses, they tend to be multi-7-figure businesses. And the reason for that is what I've found with trades businesses, particularly with AI at the moment, is they're desperate to get off the tools. They're desperate for more revenue, desperate. So they make bad decisions. And they're quite often looking to use those tools in a way that might not necessarily be as ethically sound as I would like. So what we do with those sorts of businesses is that we've got a very low level product called AI Flight Club, which is just like a monthly membership. So we've got lots of small businesses in there, less than 6 figures, and it's practical tools. You can do this to make your life easier. So we've got that product there. We then also, we've got a product called Loki, where we build and install voice agents for people's businesses. And that's equally applicable whether you're Tom the hairdresser, I'm trying to keep this balance, Tom the hairdresser, or Lisa the tree surgeon. If your head's under the counter or you're up the tree, particularly if you're paying for advertising, you don't know what that missed opportunity cost is. We've got the likes of Amazon, etc., Apple, who have trained us now where they're always on 24/7. You can order whatever you want 24 hours a day and it's going to land on your doorstep. People are going to start to expect that in the service industry, service businesses as well. Why can't I book my hair appointment at 2 a.m, etc.? So that product fits quite well with that size of business as well. But most of the deep dive, the audit work that you were talking about, that tends to be with the bigger businesses. I was with a law practice the other day in Edinburgh, which is another multi-7-figure business, and we're going in there at board level and saying, well, this is the direction of travel, and this is what you need to think about: AI in ops, AI on advertising, AI in operations. Where are the bottlenecks? It's traditional business consultancy. Find where the bottlenecks are and then fix them at scale using AI. But I think for trades, I think they probably just need to upskill themselves with what these tools can do for them, and use it at founder level. I've got no issue with ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, etc., being used at founder level, small single operator businesses, or at founder level to make their lives easier. But I think the instant you try and give all your staff access to ChatGPT, I think big problems. And I've seen some absolute horror stories with stuff like that.
Just a quick one. If you're running a window cleaning or a cleaning business right now, and you've hit a point where you're not sure what the next move is, in my experience, that's usually not a strategy problem. It's a clarity problem. I've been building a commercial window cleaning business for nearly 20 years now, and I've had the good years and I've had the bad. At the time of this recording, we're on course for £4 million this year, and we currently have 41 members of the team. So I know what it takes to build a business that can give you the lifestyle you want and the free time you deserve. If you want some guidance or just want someone to help you see your own business a bit more clearly, head over to bradstaines.com, or if you want, email me directly at brad@bradstaines.com. We can just have a conversation and see if I can help. Now back to the podcast. So let's do a bit of a workshop then.
Yeah.
So I'll dress it up. We've got a guy that's just come off the tools. He's got, let's say, 10 vans.
Yep.
Each with one person inside it, and he wants to grow another 2 vans. So which means 2 vans overhead, costs, employee rates, all that sort of stuff. And obviously with that, he has to set up a marketing program to understand, to get the business in, but obviously, as you said, like the cost of lost opportunity. So you have to understand all of the numbers so you can tweak them and pull the levers as and when you please. And then, of course, operationally, etc. Then this is a service-based business. It could be anything, window cleaning, tree surgery, whatever it is you want to. Let's just keep it high level.
Yep.
So he would be doing all of this sort of stuff, him and, let's say, an assistant, day to day. They would be answering emails. They would be doing quotes, as you said, on perhaps their CRM system. There's probably like out-of-the-box CRM system, because nowadays you have to pay consultants who completely tailor it for you, and which costs thousands. So you think, okay, forget that. Out of the box.
Start me on that.
Oh, dude, it's crazy. It does my head in.
Consultant.
Yeah. So out of the box, all out of the box systems, operational system, CRM system. What should they be doing, or where would you advise them to be looking at regarding leveraging AI and implementing systems themselves?
Yeah, so there's a lot there. So first off, nothing starts without a sale. So you need to be able to feed those vans, and you need to be able to feed those vans consistently. So you have to think, what are the channels that I'm going to use to feed those vans? So we won't talk about organic. I'll touch on it briefly, but let's just say you've got a website. So your website is going to become the back door to your business, not the front door. And the reason that I say that is because people are going to be browsing for products and services using AI agents on their phone, using voice. I don't think people are aware of what a huge play is being made at the moment for voice. So you need to think about making sure, from an organic perspective, that your website can be found, crawled, and make sense to AI agents. So there's a number of things that you can do that have to be installed on that website. So you need to make sure there's an entry for your business on Wikidata. So the way AI works is through authority. So the more authority that you've got in a particular industry, the more likely you are to basically turn up in AI search results. So when we're talking about organic, if we look at your business, for instance, you're doing big products, you're doing big projects. Sorry, you're doing lots of work at height. You've got your podcast. You've been on other people's podcasts, etc., etc., etc. If you were to go searching for a window cleaning business to do what you guys do, it's likely you would be ranked quite highly by the AI because you're going to be seen to have authority. But there is a lot that could be done. I could talk for 20 minutes about what needs to be done to your website to make sure it's friendly. So think of it as SEO for AI. In fact, there's a term for it, and it's called GEO, Generative Engine Optimization. So that's the organics. You need to be thinking about your website, because your tree surgery business or your window cleaning, you might think it's safe from AI, but you still need to find customers. If you want to scale and grow your business, start with the end in mind. Where are we going? If we're going there, how are we going to get there? We need to spend money on advertising, get people to move towards us. That's a given. Then you need to think about paid advertising. What do we do from a paid advertising perspective to get those people into the business? And it's an important one for the listeners to understand that, the way that Google used to work is not the direction of travel. So roughly 30% of search now goes into Google's AI mode, and you need to be able to influence it and make sure that you get into that. So even if you're paying for Google Ads, that's roughly 20 to 30% less effective and more expensive than it was a year ago. And that direction of travel is downwards. Will Google come up with a solution to this? Of course they will. But they've got to move quite slowly. Google will win this race eventually. They'll win everything to do with AI. They'll just swallow it all up. But we're a little way away from that, and you can get first mover advantage. So you need to think about organic search coming to your website. I know this isn't sexy, but this is the reality of it. How am I going to show up to people searching from AI? When they land on my website, bear in mind that the human might not land on my website. It might be a browsing AI agent. So if you've used Claude on your thing and you're like, I need somebody to come and clean my 40-story building in central London, who's best? You're not looking at those web results. Claude or OpenAI, ChatGPT is doing the searching, right?
That's true. Yes, of course.
The way AI search worked 6 months ago, and it still does if you're using chat, is that the AI will go to your website. It will take lots of pictures of your website. It will parse that data. It will extract the text out of that, right, and serve it back to the user. What we need to start thinking about is the Claudes. Have you watched Claude in your browser, clicking buttons and moving around? I mean, it doesn't save us any time because we all sit there goggle-eyed staring at it, watching it click the buttons. But because we're now moving to a point where AI agents can click buttons and fill in forms, and the human might never see the website, we need to make sure that we're ready if that lead does drop through at 2 o'clock in the morning, because the facilities manager of that office block is off on paternity leave or something, and he or she might only be working from 10 p.m. till 2 a.m. or something ridiculous like that. Yeah. We need to start thinking about that market. So when that lead drops into your business, what happens to that lead? So the next thing that sort of business needs to think about is automated responses. So that could be an AI phone agent. It could be, and think of these as digital employees, not chatbots. These are fully interactive digital humans.
Yeah, because you can tailor them to your entire company tone of voice, can't you?
That's our whole USP for our side of that business. So whether it's through WhatsApp, whether it's through SMS, whether it's through your website, whether it's through a voice agent, you need to make sure that interaction is within a couple of minutes and that you're capturing all the data you need to. If somebody doesn't act on that really quickly, or a thing doesn't act on that really quickly, the AI agent that's browsing the internet for that service is going to turn around to the user and is going to say, Brad didn't answer the phone, or he didn't get back to me. Would you like me to try the next business? Yes, please. And that's gone. So you've got to think about that.
Right.
That missed opportunity cost. So that's sales. Sorry, that's marketing. Sales, when those requests start landing, I would encourage people to explore setting up skills and projects in things like ChatGPT and Claude that will enable them to quote really, really quickly. Ultimately, you would build your own tool or get a consultant to help you build your own tool, but build some form of tool which means that you get consistency of pricing and that you're not leaving money on the table. That's a big one. If you've got trades businesses looking at this, I remember when I was a tree surgeon, you turn up at a job you priced a week later and you go, what was I thinking? Because you're literally picking it out of thin air. Yeah. So you need to try and systemize that. So that's the sales. You need to make sure that you can plug AI into things like Xero and QuickBooks and stuff like that to speed up your invoicing, get that money into the business quicker, which is going to help fund those 2 extra vans on the road. And then you start looking at operations. So the obvious one with vehicles on the road is vehicle check sheets. Nobody ever bloody does it. So maybe you could set up an AI system that chases the staff every Monday morning. You're not going anywhere until you filled in this check sheet. And when it's filled in the check sheet, that gets uploaded to Google Drive and escalates to a manager if there's a broken windscreen or a warning light on the vehicle or something. All of that sort of stuff is possible, possible now. In terms of the jobs on site, you touched on it in terms of off-the-shelf software packages. The problem with off-the-shelf software packages is you're paying for features that you're never going to use. You tend not to find this until you're a little bit down the road with these products. So we were using ServiceMate for a while. We were only using maybe 5% of that for our consultancy business. We've rebuilt that ourselves now. That's called Rover Jams, which stands for Job Assignment Management System. I'm a genius, I know. And there's not one function in there that isn't going to get used because we just bin it off. And if a staff member says to you, do you know what would be really useful? Would be to see if there's a job that we've done before near this job so that we can compare the two. Yeah, not a problem. So, you plug that in. I'm massively oversimplifying the amount of work that goes into doing this, but you need to think about the art of the possible. So you've got sales, you've got marketing, you've got operations. What else is there? What other business functions have we got?
So then you got, I suppose, look at it like you've got team as well, HR in a sense. I call it team, so it's like. But I think you probably touched on it. That would come from an operational point of view, an operational systems point of view of delivering or maintaining perhaps all of the legislation and things that you have to upkeep within the team of hiring.
Yeah, I mean, my whole philosophy around this is that, and you'll know where this has come from, you should build a business to sell even if you've got no intention of selling it, right? All of the Jameses say that. And it's very, very true because you build better systems, you build better processes, and it means that if you do get a knock on the door and somebody comes looking for your window cleaning business or your consultancy business or whatever it is, you can say, well, look at this, we're not vulnerable to any particular product. So I believe that no matter what the size of business, we've never ever been in a time where this is more possible than it is now, and even 6 months ago it wasn't possible, that you need to build that IP into your business. You need to build your own software, you need to build your own processes, and you need to plug all that in. And you could start off with something very, very, very simple, like, all the new leads for the business come into one platform. Then you start to build on, operations, admin, HR, all that sort of stuff as well. And there'll be people out there that go, what about security? What about AI? Well, you're not using an open model. What you're doing is you're just using an API connection that's secure on the back end. You're locking it down to your domain, you're locking it down to your email addresses. What do you think happens if you give all of your team, say, off you go, you can use ChatGPT, and they're all logging in with their own email addresses, and so they're putting your tenders through it and all this sort of stuff. It's a huge security vulnerability. So build your own platform to operate your business off of. Pick something simple to start with and then push forwards from there.
I think that's kind of the thing to take from that little piece there, is the fact that it's opening or expanding the possibility or your own imagination of what is actually possible in a business with all the tools that are available to us nowadays. I think that's what it is. I think that's probably the piece there, and I'd like for the listeners to really understand that, is that there's so many tools out there that, as you said at the beginning, was it 98% of people who'd be using it just for a powered Google search.
Well,
and we're talking about all building complete operational systems of businesses.
I mean, if you look at just OpenAI, for instance, so if you just look at ChatGPT, and please, listeners, don't get tied down with tools. It doesn't matter. They all do the bloody same thing. You know, everyone jumped to Claude because it had co-work and code and all this. Now OpenAI, ChatGPT has got sites and work, which does exactly the same thing. Don't jump about tools. Just learn a blooming tool and stick with it. Yeah, implement it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, because you tested that on your own business, didn't you? Like you said, like Rover, you've completely built the entire system.
This is it. There's so many people in the AI space who have done something, and they thought, that's cool, I'm going to take that to market, or I'm going to build a piece of software and take it to market, or whatever. And it just doesn't work. It doesn't work because it's such a fast-moving space. You know, it's such an unbelievably fast-moving space that that is my USP. Really, is that everything I'm talking about, I've done. It's battle-tested. My staff are using it today. Yeah,
exactly. And that's what I want to touch on, was the fact that everything you've built and you've suggested is actually being used in a very successful business today. So it can be done. It's just like you say, having the idea and then implementing it.
Absolutely. And if it doesn't work, you know, it's never been cheaper to fail. So, you know, if you built oh my God, I've built lots of things that haven't worked or failed, or staff don't use them. And I thought I was a genius because I built like a little harass fencing calculator for, you know, working out exactly how many meters, how many feet, how many clips and all that sort of stuff they would need on site. And no bugger used it. I mean, it's still sitting there. It's on our platform, but nobody uses it. But, you know, fail fast, move on.
Definitely, yeah, that's it. So what are you building towards next then?
What am I building towards? I mean, I've got the sort of big hairy goals. I'm enjoying what we're doing with Rover, and we'll continue to grow and scale that. And we're trying to vertically integrate lots of other things. So, you know, we've got the tree consultancy, we've got the arboricultural consultancy, the natural bolt-ons to that are then tree surgery, topographical surveying, all that sort of stuff. So we're looking to pull in as much as we can. Gives a much better service to our end customer then as well. Becomes a one-stop shop. And I'm still using AI and automation to enable us to get to that. Imagine what we could do with a business that we bought, and we've done this. We bought a business down here called Central London Tree Surveys, and we just poured our stuff onto it and made it much more valuable very, very quickly. With the AI consultancy, we've got some big hairy goals around that. But at a personal level, I just really enjoy going into people's businesses, doing that traditional piece, finding out what the bottlenecks are, what are the time sucks, and then, you know, looking to fix those problems at scale. And you just watch people's eyes when they join the dots, and it's just fantastic. I really enjoy doing that. So.
I bet you get a sense of accomplishment, don't you? From that, seeing it before and after, and it's quite amazing. It's brilliant. So we've got a couple of quick fire rounds then.
Oh no!
Here we go.
There's no tombola in this.
Tom, I love that. That is brilliant. So, best business decision you've ever made?
Best business decision I've ever made. I think the first one was probably employing my first PA, although she has now stepped sideways into an HR role because AI has taken over a lot of that. And a close second, a CFO, a fractional CFO.
Okay.
Instantly opened up opportunities, helped consolidate, you know, short-term debt, because growing a company is painful, isn't it? You know, it's really, really painful. You're quite often robbing the future to sort of pay for the present. So bringing in a fractional CFO, I think, was probably the best thing that we've ever done.
It's funny you mention that, because that, for me too, is one of the, like whenever you run in a business for a length of time and there's certain milestones you say, yeah, that was pivotal, and for me it was 2013 getting a proper chartered accountant, and then 2019 getting a marketing director in to completely revolutionise our branding, which took us to another level. And one of the things was getting someone to run the finances full time, because I didn't understand about the balance sheet and the power. So when you go and I had all these great big dreams, I want to borrow this money, I'm going to borrow £1 million and I'm going to buy these companies. And then the first thing they look at is balance sheet, and you're like, you got no, we're going to lend you a pound.
Yeah.
You think, right, well, what do I need to do then? You're like, well, get that in order. I don't know how. So I just brought someone in that does. And we've never looked back since in that department. It's been absolutely amazing.
It is who, not how. And I think that's the problem. And that's the problem with that AI stuff as well. It's like, well, who am I going to get to, how am I going to do all this? It's no. Who are you going to get to do all this? Because even if you bring in like an AI or automation consultant and they set the building blocks and get it all set up, that's being built within your business. It's not like the traditional system where you get go high level or active campaign specialist in. You give them 10 grand, they set it all up, and then you're beholden to them into the future. It doesn't work like that now. You can build your own software and manage it yourself.
And I've had my clashes with some consultants over the years from HubSpot, and I'm so pleased it's other ways around it now. So, worst business decision you've ever made?
What's the worst business decision I ever made? Probably a couple of years ago in a growth phase, taking cheap money because we didn't think we had any option. So we took cheap money, and I know a mutual friend of ours, Jacob Lockwood, was talking about this as well. But my CFO said this to me, which is why it was another smart decision. He's like, when the back's against the wall, there's always someone that's going to give you expensive money. The key is getting good money. But we took like 100 grand from like iWalker or something like that. And we paid it back in like 3 months, but the interest was just horrendous. That was probably one of the worst decisions. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? You don't see it at the time. You just need the money, don't you? We took on a whole load of new staff going into the quietest period of the year, ready for the busy time of the year. And we, that was expensive to fund that and get that set up and running. And I mean, there's loads of moments like that, isn't there? But we have sleepless nights for a few days, and then generally speaking, every problem gets solved within 2 weeks. And then it's gone, and you're on to the next one. I just think as entrepreneurs, we don't like being comfortable, do we? We're almost self-sabotage.
Even when it's going smoothly.
Yeah.
You're looking for the next thing, aren't you?
Yeah.
So, you read and listen to books?
I do.
Yeah. So what book would you say has changed how you think?
I think probably, well, there's two actually. Profit First, because I read that about 5 or 6 years ago. So that's just about making sure you pay yourself first, putting money into buckets. So we opened, which was really difficult to open lots of different accounts with the same bank. Now it's easy because you just go Starling or whatever, Monza or something. But 6-7 years ago, it was quite difficult. Running Profit First, so you've got the money put aside for corp tax, VAT, profit, etc. So it's split out. You get £1,000 in, 10% goes here, 10% goes here, 5% goes there, and everything's sitting there. So Profit First was a good one. Has that always worked smoothly? No. Sometimes you've got to rob VAT to do this or rob profit to do that or whatever. That's just the way of the world. But having that structure in place was pivotal. And there's been a few others. So yeah, Profit First. What was the other one I said? I can't remember. Built to Sell. I mean, I think that's a really good book. It's a quick read. You can read it in a couple of days or so. But I was an avid reader. I was going through a couple of business books a month, and they're all on the shelf at home. All the ones that you all have read as well that you're familiar with. And I think it was James Martin that said this. After a while, you realise it's the same stuff being regurgitated all the time in a slightly
because he keeps reading the same book a few times, doesn't he?
Yeah, and there's stuff I go back to. I think Rich Dad Poor Dad is great, and I'm trying to get my 12-year-old to read that as well, just to give him some financial education. The Felix Dennis, all of those I think are really, really good. But I do tend to read business books, and I don't really read any fiction.
No.
Uh
Okay, so I've got one question I'll explain after.
oh.
So, what's one question you'd like someone to ask you?
Oh, good God. Do you know what? I'm going to twist that, and I'll be honest with you. The thing that I've identified this, like I say, I'm knocking on the door of 50, and it's only really in the last 10 years I've identified this. I do need somebody every now and again to say, "Well done," and you're doing a good job, and are you all right? And I think there'll be people listening to this, probably running businesses in their 20s, that'll be like, "Oh yeah, when I'm 50 and I've got the Porsche and £1 million in the bank, and I'll be happy." No, you won't. It doesn't change anything. You're still the exact same person. You've still got the same insecurities, the same worries. All of that is still there. And I've got an interesting relationship with my father. We get on absolutely, fine. But he comes from a very different world. And I don't think he's ever said like "well done" or "I'm proud of you" or anything like that. And this is why, and it's not because he's not, it's just he comes from a generation where he doesn't. So I think it's really important to surround yourself with people who go, "Oh, well done, well done." And I think if we're honest, we probably all need a little bit of that. It's like, James Martin, who's one of my mentors. I was speaking to him about getting this commercial property over the line. He was like, "Oh, well done, really proud of you. Good job doing that. It's not been easy, etc., etc." And you look, it's the simple things, isn't it?
It is.
So, I think the question that I would think that I would like people to ask me more often is, "How's things?" But the right people, so you can be honest with them.
Yeah, that's good. So I actually pinched that question from Will Polston.
Did you?
He asked that to me when I went on his podcast.
Yeah.
And it absolutely blew my mind.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking about it all for the drive home on the way back, and I was like, "What is that one question?"
Yeah.
I can't remember what the answer I gave, but then I constantly after I was
Blame
thinking.
Will.
Because blame Will, exactly.
Will.
So if he's listened to this,
Coming for you,
pinched
Will.
that for you.
He's coming on my podcast in
Yeah,
October.
yeah. Oh, brilliant.
I'll
Yeah,
ask him
great
that.
guy.
Yeah.
Oh yes, you should.
Yeah, I'll throw him back at him.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when you say that about, because I find that with business owners or people that are really trying to push the boundaries or challenge the status quo, people just assume you're okay.
Yeah.
And they think, well, I best not ask because he's probably, or she, they're doing okay anyway. Of course they are. Well, look at them.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, like you said, you're still human. You still need that human sort of like interaction. Still need human sort of like, I don't know, confirmation of once in a while, a little applause, perhaps. I mean, it goes a long way, I think. And
yeah, I mean, I just, I don't think none of us are shrinking violets or flowers because we wouldn't have chosen this path. But I think every now and again it's good to get that feedback. What about you then?
yeah, so I mean,
What did you give him an answer?
oh God, I can't remember what it was. I think it was happiness.
Really?
So something very similar.
Yeah.
Because people say happy, and I think that happiness comes from, I have this thing like outer confidence and inner confidence. Outer confidence tends to be what you see on Instagram, and social media. And inner confidence is when you can really just sit there with nothing, interacting with anything or no devices or anything like that, and you're sitting there and you just feel content.
Yeah.
And I think that would be, I don't know, I think that is great to have.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, that's one of the reasons that I live in the Scottish Highlands because you can.
Surrounded by
Some of my
nature.
happiest memories are just being sat on a hillside, sort of looking back down at the house, going, warmth of the sun on your face. Mobile phones have got a lot to answer for.
They have.
I'm actually hopeful that AI will help people get back to that a little bit because it's going to increase productivity so much. I've been travelling all day today to get into central London for this. I've been making changes to our software using Claude on my phone because it's linked to everything on an office computer, a remote computer, and that wouldn't have been possible. And it means that I can dump out of my head very quickly and get these tasks done in a way that you know, it would have been so complicated even just six months to a year or so ago. So I think it's going to give people a lot more headspace. So yeah, I'm hopeful
Yeah,
for the future.
definitely. Yeah,
Yeah,
positive
exactly,
outlook.
exactly.
Do you think that people don't check in with? I say us, but as in business owners, entrepreneurs, those really challenge the status quo kind of people, because it's the way that people are in this country or the Western world. And I'll explain a story. So
Yeah,
let's say, for instance, if you have two people, and they both embark on a weight loss or a getting fit challenge, and one of them, they start off really well, 2 weeks, which tends to be the usual, and then after a while, person A drops off. And then they start binge watching series and blah, 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 eating rubbish and a lot, and they start dropping off. And people are seeing that. And then person B then continues on those strict disciplines. And 6 months down the line, etc., then people challenge and say, okay, well, what have you done? I stuck to the plan. And then, okay, person A, well, I didn't really stick to the plan. So therefore I'm looking like this, and that person over there is looking like this. People will say, oh, well, don't worry about it. You'll be okay. You know, try again next time. And the person B will be, oh, well done, etc., congratulations. The moment you chuck money into it, because really, business is the same. If, let's say, for instance, you and I were to lose everything, and in 6 months' time, we said, right, this is the map. We already know the map because we've done it. This is the map. And I said, right, 2 weeks, I'm going to go for it hard. After 2 weeks, I start thinking, I can't bother with this. And you continue. In 6 months' time, will people really say, oh, well done you. Brad, he was bloody lazy, Git. He didn't do anything. Do you know what I mean? And that's so. Then when someone come up to me and said, "Yeah, you didn't get to your success because of these reasons. You sat back. You didn't really push yourself. You didn't implement anything." I think it's a little bit more of a sensitive subject all of a sudden because money is involved.
I think, you know, accountability is huge, and that's one of the reasons that these kind of business masterminds are so effective, and mentorship is so effective. But I think some people do struggle with that. You know, if you're paying somebody X thousands of pounds a month, and then they actually turn around and say you're doing a shit job, or you're not doing this good enough, or you've not implemented, this is why you're not at this particular point. I think there is some tension there, so you have to choose those relationships wisely. But I like your fitness analogy there, because you see that a lot. You see that particularly with females as well, where they will either lift each other up or pull each other back down. And I think it's so important to choose the right group.
Go back to environment again, doesn't it?
Yeah, I've seen that so many times where it's like, oh well, you know, you only live once, and it's like, well, keep eating those donuts, and
it won't be for long.
You know, and it is, you've got to pick the right people to surround yourself with, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
and then they'll be lifting you up, not going, oh, just have it.
Accountability.
Yeah,
holding you accountable.
Absolutely.
I think that's big.
Yeah,
definitely.
it is. It's everything.
Yeah,
it's everything.
Well, we went off on a tangent there, but Matt, thank you so much for coming on that. I really, really appreciate it. So, if someone wanted to get in contact with you, how can they find you?
Oh, they just talk to the world.
Affirmations.
Affirmations. And I'll move towards them. I'm very active on Instagram, which is at Matt Harmsworth, or AI Matt, or anything like that. Will throw me up. On YouTube, AI Matt. TikTok, same. Although I don't really use that much because I think I'm too old for it. But we've got some reasonable traction there. And my website's mattharmsworth.com. And everything that we do is on there. So thank you.
Brilliant. No, thank you very much. Okay, back to Scotland.
Yeah.
Okay.